discriminative language methodology and innovations. So my name is Saeed. I'm a doctoral student here at UW Madison. I do teach Arabic as a TA, and also I'm pursuing my studies in applied linguistics, focusing on language education of Arabic specifically. So our first presenter today is Mohamed Ismail. He's from Egypt, and he's now a visiting exchange teacher at Hillgate High School, Missoula, Montana. Yeah. He comes from Egypt on a one-year fellowship through the teaching to the teachers of critical language program at the invitation of U.S. departments. And I have presented some water here if you need, and please welcome Ismail.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to thank you for your coming and participation in this session, and I hope it will be beneficial for both of us. As you can see, the title is Incorporating Egyptian Culture and Current Events into the Teaching of a Critical Language with TCLP. I think it's a long title, but I was obliged to do this. If it was a year ago, it would only be Egyptian culture without the current events. But you know what's happening now in the Middle East, what's happening now in Egypt, and the Arab Spring has aroused, all these events have aroused people's curiosity about our country, in addition to the Pharaonic era. So as a teacher of Arabic, I needed to incorporate this culture into my work. When I talk about Egyptian culture, I talk about Egyptian Arabic culture, but Arabic culture in most cases can be incorporated within the classroom work, and in most cases it is language based. But sometimes I need to explain the specific branch or the specific area of Egypt or Egyptian culture in my work. So I'm going to explain to you or show to you my own experience in Hillgate High School, which is a basic school. I work in Missoula, Montana. And of course I had a class in Willard High School also. But of course I have paid visit to different community institutions of the communities, the University of Montana, and different places to spread my culture. So, start with our agenda. I'm going to start with the definition of the meaning of TCLP, then what is meant by Egyptian culture. So we have a lot of meanings or definitions of this culture, but I try to find a simple one. What are the factors that influence this culture? Why it is a must to incorporate this culture into my work? How can I incorporate Egyptian culture into my work? And the last part of the session is going to be for questions and discussion. Let's start. What is the meaning of TCLP and what is its purpose? I'm going to give my simple definition. As you can see from the photo, we are 25 teachers. TCLP, Teachers of Critical Languages Program, has brought 25 teachers from China and Egypt. When we say China and Egypt, we notice that it's going to be talking about critical languages, which are not widely spread like Latin-rooted languages like Spanish, Italian, and French, but these are critical languages. There are 15 Chinese teachers and 10 Egyptian teachers, but I think this is fair because you know the large population of China, so I think this is fair. This is the definition. I prefer you see it on the website. Teachers of Critical Language Program, TCLP, is a multi-layered cross-culture program funded by the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs of the United States Department of State and administered by American Council for International Education. TCLP is designed to increase the number of Americans teaching and studying Arabic and remembering. Of course, this is an important point because some of our students, when I teach at high school, I also have Ustaz Salah is also a fellow TCLP teacher, and his mentor teacher Laura. They are participating in the same program here in Wisconsin. So we are spread all over the USA, And this work aims to enhance students' ability in Arabic language. So this can be a kind of preparing American teachers. I hope this. Teaching and studying Arabic and Mandarin. We invite you to explore our site, starting with the video below, sharing TCLP teachers highlights. You can look onto this website. You can find, if you are interested in teaching Arabic, I think this part is very nice. Arabic teachers, lesson plans. You can find a lot of lesson plans from the ground of reality. Because you know, we are professional teachers in different places. So you can notice different topics and different states in the US. Thank you. Then I move to the meaning of Egyptian culture. Of course, Egyptian culture has a lot of resources because of the Egyptian strategic position, because of a lot of Egyptians traveling to different places of the world, but and because of the long history of Egypt, which I think is not the mere thing which I talk about, because some people think that when we talk about Egyptian culture, we talk about the pharaonic era. And that's not correct, because even with history, Egypt has a long history after the pharaonic era, and from time to time, a lot of events happens in this hotspot of the world in which people are interested. The culture of Egypt has more than 5,000 years of recorded history. Ancient Egypt was among the earliest civilizations. For millennia, Egypt maintained a strikingly complex and stable culture that had profound influence on later cultures of Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. With its ancient history, cosmopolitanism, strong Islamic traditions, modern Pan-Arab political and intellectual history, and relative freedom, Egypt is considered the cultural capital of the Arab world, or one of the cultural capitals of the Arab world. The Arab television and cinema is dominated by the Egyptian television and film industry. Then I move why it is a must to incorporate Egyptian culture into my work. Of course, if you ask me incorporating Arabic culture in my work, it's not a question, because all of people know that culture is an integral part of teaching a language. But this is specific part of the Arabic culture, which is Egyptian. Why should I incorporate this part in my work? Of course, TCLP requirement, and you know we are Egyptians, we like following the rules, and TCLP told us to teach our culture. Our culture means Arabic culture, Muslim culture or Islamic culture, and Egyptian culture. But I have to be convinced to do this. Of course, current events in the Middle East, as I told you, has aroused people's interest or curiosity about this area of the world. So I needed to talk to it. To talk to these communities, to those people, even in the community, in the university, and in different places. Stereotypes, in my part, perhaps I am the second Egyptians, and too many people, the first Egyptians they have seen in their life. I have faced a lot of situations, and how can I handle it, and how can I explain? You are going to watch a very nice movie. I visited a middle school in which students asked me, do you have electronics? Do you live in tents or TVs? So I was not surprised, because they are young kids. They depend basically on movies or old movies if they talk about, because it's a country far away from them. So I had to, how to I deal with this? You can see, because I have a very short clip showing my visits to these places. Then curiosity about pharaonic civilization. I think people can consider this is the first thing, or the first reason for talking about Egyptian culture. Varied sources of my culture provide a rich background to draw from, because I can talk about a culture, but because it's rich, I have to assign some certain classes, a lot of work to this. Factors that influence modern Egyptian culture. Let's consider Arabic culture. If you are asking any Egyptian, who are you? You can say, I am an Arab. That's the first thing or the first impression that an Egyptian talk about himself. He is an Arab, Islam, and Christianity. It's well known that Egyptians, both Muslims and Christians, are very emotional towards their religions. So religion has a lot of influence, or an important influence in their culture and their character. Ancient Egyptian civilization. Of course, this is an important part. This is how the world see us, the other places in the world see us. And this can affect our history, our character, our pride, our national pride. It has a reason. And anyway, these monuments you can see has an important, even an economic influence in our country because of the tourism. And it brings to Egypt a lot of money, of course, after the revolution, or during it has been affected. But we hope that, or we can endure this because we decided to do a revolution, so we have to endure the side effects that happened and still happening now. Middle East, of course, when we hear the word Middle East, we can remember oil, wars. It's a hot spot in the world. So we are affected by this area. Western civilization. A lot of people. Perhaps you have heard about the Egyptian revolution, and people accused the protesters to have a lot of meals or have bribes as meals from Kentucky. When I say this in the USA, you consider Kentucky, KFC, or McDonald's are just popular. But even the service of Kentucky and McDonald's in our country is very nice. I think it's very better than here. So if you go to Cairo and try this, it's very different. It's considered a classy place or a good place. We are highly affected in our clothing, in our contact. We have millions of people working in France, Italy, different places. We have a lot of expertise. Okay. Then Africa. We know Africa, we meet a lot of Africans during soccer matches, but we have more relations than this. Even Egypt has supported a lot of revolutions after the imperialism or occupation era or period. Egypt has sent some troops to Congo, has good relations with the revolution in Kenya, in Accra, and we have a lot of cultural relationships with these countries. How I incorporate Egyptian culture in my work. My work is divided in my classroom work and my outreach. So I'm going to start with inside the classroom. I handle some topics that I embed in my classroom work. Feasts and celebration. You can see this is a celebration of Mawlid al-Mawlid al-Nabawi. We say Mawlid al-Nabi. It is the birth of Prophet Muhammad. According to Muslims' belief. And we have Sham al-Nisim, which is unique to Egyptians. I think I have taught many lessons about Sham al-Nisim in my school, and even I visited other schools for other Arabic classes because my colleague in the city is Jordanian, so he invited me to talk about Sham al-Nisim because it is only Egyptian celebration. Ancient Egypt. I think some Americans know more than I about ancient Egypt. Egyptian revolution. Yes, can you see my picture? Famous Egyptian figures. I'm talking about the previous one. Famous Egyptian figures and scientists. We of course, Egypt has a lot of scientists and throughout its long history, but we still have Ahmed Zuhail. He has a very important scientific position here. Dr. Farouk al-Baz, Mohamed Abdelsamad, Nabdi Yaqub, one of the initiators or the important people who initiated the heart transplant. محفوظ علي مصطفى مشرفة. Figures from history, different shopping habits and currency. Of course, can you bargain? If you go to Egypt, you have to bargain, to know how to bargain well. The Arabic, it's Arabic well, but in Egypt especially, you have to bargain very well. Golden age of Muslim civilization and Egypt's role during this era. Homestay and hospitality habits. Of course, this is something that has to be explained to my students. Of course, it is a kind of Arabic culture and Egyptian culture also. The type of how do you invite someone, how to serve different kinds of drinks and these ways. And first you have to say no, then you have to accept, and these ways. Tourist attractions and major cities. Simple Egyptian songs. This is Hakim. Egyptian jokes and riddles. Especially with beginners, sometimes I have to translate these jokes. It's not easy to give them a whole joke. And Egyptian riddles, we have sense of humor in which you don't smile a lot while you are telling a joke, or your audience should laugh. Folk games. This is Salah. It's a famous folk Egyptian game. I used it and it was very successful in my class. I'll give names to students with different foods, different animals, and we play this game. It's like sums up in American. Common phrases in Egyptian dialect. I don't teach much dialect, but let's say a week of Egyptian dialect common expressions. So when you go to Egypt, you can see food, classroom atmosphere, traditional clothes, body language. Is it okay? Do you know this sign in Egyptian? It's a threat. For example, if you are in a cafe and point like this, what does this mean? A glass of tea. But if you make like this, a cup of coffee. So you are a professional Egyptian. Architecture, traditional crafts and industries, musical instruments, Egyptian cinema and TV, marriage habits. Then I moved to the outreach. It's an important part of my work. Visits to other schools and community institutions where I deliver presentations about Egypt, past and present, the Egyptian revolution, and current events in the Middle East. Talking to local media, I didn't go to them really. They came and asked me, and I had to answer, especially about the current events. Okay. This is a movie. I'm going to show you a short clip support for this presentation we have provided in part by the Teachers of Critical Language program. I have to say this. Project the program is sponsored by the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs of the U.S. Department of State and implemented by American Council for International Education. And I would like to thank them for their nice program. I'm going in a hurry to show you a short clip.
The two arrows? Yeah.
I wrote it for my students, and you can acquire the aspects of collective speech through listening to this.
Yeah.
Students made Egyptian koshery and it was a successful try. Of course, they enjoyed it very much. Enjoyed making and having. This is a kind of outreach. I visited different places, talking about Arab Spring, about Egypt, about history and geography of Egypt.
Okay, so can we stop it?
Okay, and if you have any questions?
Yes, so we're open until like 2, so you have 7 minutes of questions. Okay. Okay.
Okay, if you have any questions, I would be more than happy about the work, about anything related to Egyptian culture and incorporating it in my work. Yes?
Were you able to connect with your classes in Egypt with your classes in Haldi?
Of course, it was a difficulty because of the time difference. It was a difficulty, but I hope to do this.
And how much study of the language have they had by the time they're in your class? Are they beginning? Are they just starting out? Or
you are talking about the level of my students. I have first graders and second Arabic 1 and Arabic 2. And for example, if you are teaching about Sham Nusim, which is a spring festival for ancient Egyptians and we inherited it, when I teach it to Arabic 1, it's just culture. I see.
Yes.
But in Arabic 2, I incorporate a short passage, for example, including language. They learn about the word Sham Nasim, the word Fisir, the foods, the colored eggs, and so I incorporate culture in addition to language, especially for more advanced students. Yes.
What would you say is one of the most, what is a major difficulty in teaching American students Arabic? What's one thing that's
You know, the major difficulty is that the most languages they learn have Latin letters and sounds. This is the basic difficulty. So the writing system and the different different sounds, like the difference between ha and kha, ghain. So those are some difficulties, and of course the cultural aspect, which needs more work or more effort to make students at ease when they are learning the language itself.
And so, like, what strategies have you employed, like just one or two, to help the, with the pronunciation or maybe learning more about the culture?
Yes, of course, this takes a lot of time. Sometimes, for example, I show them a song and try to notice the sound kha and say how many times it occurred. So try to listen and discriminate. And I am not in a hurry with this because I know it's a difficulty. Compare this to your or American vowel sounds, ow, and this. So it's a difficulty for us. So I'm not at ease, and with the time and with writing, they can notice the difference. For example, sometimes dictation messages can work for this.
I have a question. So, what are the challenges you face, like dealing with students trying to explain to them some of the aspects?
During
Like
culture or
like the Arab Spring, like how do you explain to them? So they see like a lot of people dying, a lot of people doing so. How do you explain that to them?
always I see the truth about the situation. I have to be sincere describing what is happening. This happened especially when I visited the university. They ask critical questions like what is the attitude of the Muslim Brotherhood, what is the attitude of the fundamental Muslims. I have to explain the truth and the reality about everything in our country, and I have to explain that the revolution has not finished. It has started, it lasted for 3 weeks, but the side effects can take long time, and this is something normal for all revolutions. This is the answer to the question about revolution. This was your question?
Yeah. Another one, so how, question this guy. What are the questions that are repeated from students? Do they ask you questions like they are eager to know about certain aspects, or you just
for example, sometimes students ask questions about stereotypes. About, for example, how many women do you marry? A question like this, I have to be sincere. According to Islam, you are free to marry up to 4, because this is the reality. But in some parts of Arab countries, we can marry, they marry more than one. But it's very difficult. For example, if you try this in Egypt, you know what is happening to you. You are going to suffer a lot. So I have to tell them the cultural side, the religion side, the Egyptian culture, the Arab culture, and so on. This is the way I deal with such a situation.
Okay.
So
Thank you so much.
It has been a pleasure being with you. And I hope when you finish, you can fill in the evaluation form by the end of the sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.